excellency of divine power. If she will be true to her allegiance, there is no power that can stand against her. The forces of the enemy will be no more able to overwhelm her than is the chaff to resist the whirlwind. Wow. And the finishing part says, there is before the church the dawn of a bright, glorious day, if she will put on the robe of Christ's righteousness, withdrawing from all allegiance to the world. God calls upon his faithful ones who believe in him to talk courage to those who are unbelieving and hopeless. Turn to the Lord, ye prisoners of hope. Seek strength from God, the living God. Show an unwavering, humble faith in his power and his willingness to save. When in faith we take hold of his strength, he will wonderfully change the most hopeless, discouraging outlook. Isn't that an amazing, amazing quote? An amazing promise. Have you ever felt like sometimes, even our church within, it's like, God, are you ever going to be able to get us all on fire at the same time and be filled with Christ's righteousness, filled with God's love? It was Elbert Hubbard who said, God will not look you over for medals, degrees, diplomas, but for scars. I think there's something very powerful, very profound in that. Do you have scars from your journey so far? Have you felt knocked down? Struggled sometimes, being depressed about the way situation is in your life? I'm sure if you're like me, we all have at times. It was Cyrus, the founder of the Persian Empire. Once he had captured a prince and his family, children, wife. And so on a given day, he had him and his family brought to the front of his throne, and in his severest tone, he had on his regalia, his robe, and his leadership insignia and his crown. And he said to the man, he said, what will you give me if I will, in order to set you free? And the prince said, I'll give you half of all that I own. And so the king responded, he said, all right, what will you give me in order to set your children free? And without hesitation, the prince responded, I will give you everything I own. All right, and to set your wife free? Cyrus responded. And with no hesitation, the prince looked him in the eyes and then looked over at his wife. He said, King Cyrus, he said, for my wife, I will give myself. I thought to myself when I read that story, I thought, wow, isn't that a good picture of God's love for us? But then as I started, in fact, we're reminded of the words, John 15:13, I believe it is, greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. But then I started to think about it, and as wonderful of a story as that is, it's very touching, it moves our hearts. I thought, wait a second. When it comes to Christ, God's love, Christ's love, that's actually a contrast. Well, what do you mean, Pastor Curt? That's actually a contrast to God's love. Let's take our Bibles and go to Romans chapter 5, and you probably maybe have already figured out what I'm talking about here. But God's love, this story, as wonderful as it is, comes up short. Romans chapter 5, beginning with verse 6. Familiar word, you can probably finish the verses. For when we were yet without strength, in due time, Christ died for all the righteous people. Does your version say that? Christ died for those who won't surrender to him. Christ died for those who were valiant warriors in his army. Doesn't say that, does it? It says simply that Christ died for the ungodly. Any by nature ungodly people here? I am. Much as we'd like to think differently. He died for the ungodly, for scarcely for a righteous man will one die, verse 7 brings in, yet peradventure for a good man some would even dare to die. We see those stories, we see the video clip where somebody, in fact I just saw one recently, a young man, a car going underwater, there was a woman in this car, couldn't get out still, and the dog was in there as well, and he disappeared a brief moment, and he comes dragging the woman out of the water, saving her life, and she's screaming about her dog, and he goes under for the dog and grabs the dog and saves the dog's life. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Didn't even really know her, but was willing to get in there and risk his own life. That wasn't a real deep river, but still, you never know. Anything can happen. Somebody can grab onto you down there and not be able to get free, and then you can't get free. We hear those kind of stories. But Jesus, friends, when he came, in verse let's continue on down to verse 8. God commendeth his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Verse 10, for if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. Let me put this into context briefly. This means that you and me, all of us here, this means that we are that servant that slapped Jesus across the face when he began to talk to Caiaphas, or Annas actually it was. We are that Roman soldier who put the purple robe on Jesus and began to bow, mocking him. You and me were that Roman soldier who held the hand of Jesus out and began nailing that nail. Are you getting a good picture of who the enemies are? We are that one who stuck the spear in his side after he breathed his last. We are those people that were lining up, if you read Desire of Ages, and what a powerful depiction it is. They were literally in line, and one after the other would go up and either spit in his face, punch him, slap him, kick him between the legs, whatever. We don't have all the light, and we don't want to even know because it hurts us too badly to know that he went through anything for us. But we were in line. Do you have the right picture? Am I seeing clearly while we were his enemies, we were fighting against him? And is it any wonder that we still fight against him today? It's too much to ask for us to give up something that we have in our life, to change our diet, whatever it is, to give it up for this one that did all that for me and for you. I'm sure the heart of angels must be astounded, but yet they understand that we're in such sinful condition that we just don't get it yet. So do you see now a little bit more why this beautiful story of Cyrus and the prince pales in comparison to what Jesus did? Contrast. This amazing Jesus. He's incredible, really. Incredible. You've heard me say it many a time, but I have to keep repeating the same story because it's so deep. He takes humanity on. Inspiration reveals to us that he didn't, just God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. He didn't just give him to become a human and to die for us and go back to heaven and go back to being God. He gave him to humanity. He said he gave him to mankind. That means for the rest of eternity, Jesus is keeping his human form. He's keeping what we are. He made a decision, even though he's still fully God, he can still do whatever he wants as the mind of God, as the heart of God. He said, "Lo, I am with you always," did he not? So yeah, God, the definition of God is way beyond. If we understood everything about God, or even a little portion more than we do, he wouldn't be God, would he? But he's keeping his humanity. He went to the cross. He died. He let people slap him. He let Satan do everything and anything and everything to him. It had to be that he bore it alone. And why? Because of our sins. because of our rebellion, because of our stubbornness, because we make excuses over and over and over. And Jesus gets it. God understands that we have to have a power not in ourselves, because we cannot overcome anything, can we? We've tried. We've tried to give up things that we know that are bad for us. We've tried to overcome, temptation when it comes, and we forget, we fight, and, we hear that philosophy. You've heard me say it before. I'll say it one more time. People tell me, you know what? Jesus will save us as long as we just keep fighting. We'll keep sinning all the way to the end and keep giving in. As long as we keep fighting, we're saved. That's not how the Bible says. That's not how it works, friends. This is, if you love me, you keep my commandments. This means that Jesus is saying to us, look, if you see the condition that you're in, if you see that what I have done for you, that you need a Savior. If you see that, the disciples sitting around the Last Supper, what was the one question that they all asked that was really prominent in the whole conversation that went on? What was the question? 4 words. Lord, is it I? Ask yourself the question this morning. It's just you and God. It's just me and the Lord. Lord, could I have more blessings? Could I have that peace in a world that's fallen to pieces? Is it I? Am I bringing a curse to my own life? Am I bringing a curse to my family's life? Am I bringing a curse to my marriage? Am I bringing the curse to my church family, the community? Am I ignoring your commands? Am I just not connected? Am I trying to just wing it and hope to do enough in order to be able to be saved in the end? Friends, God's plan is simple. What he has done in this death, this perfect life in this death that's perfect as well, what he's doing now, if we would have him as our high priest, he is saying, look, I know what you've done. I know every thought that has been in your mind. I know the evil that you have thought and that I have done. I know it all. But if you want to be saved, if you're willing to let this be washed away, I will wash it away for you. I will give you a brand new start. I will bring a joy and a happiness and a peace that no matter what comes your way, that you will just keep your eyes on me and you will not lose faith in me. I will impart my righteousness. If you want what I have, I want to give it to you. It's an exchange, church family. It's all or nothing. Jesus is the wisest being in the universe. The mind of God knows that everything has to go that is sinful and self-centered in nature. It has to go. And everything is spiritual pride and things that we think that we're, what we're really not, it has to go. It has to be everything that is his clothes. It's his clothes or we're lost. He's offering the trade. Pride has to go. Selfishness has to go. It's a trade. If you and I, we want to keep on hanging on to our old jalopy that doesn't even have an engine, doesn't work anymore, just sits there, rusting, broken down, that's who we are. We can try to make ourselves look as good as we want in the mirror, but the truth of the matter is we're that old jalopy broken down that's never going to run. And that's why he did what he did. He's saying, I'll give you that brand new Lamborghini, your favorite color. You'll find peace. You'll be a witness of my power of love. I want to give it to you. Do you want a church family? Christ's incarnation, when he came, it was all about reducing the distance between God and man, because the gap was inseparable, irreparable, shall we say. There was no joining. This is why Jesus says in John 15:7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you ask whatever you want, because you'll be thinking like me, and it'll be given to you. If you want a soul, your next door neighbor, I'll work in a mighty way. I'll bring them to the point of wanting to come and join that movement. The final call comes to each one of us, friends. 2 Corinthians 6:17 says, "Wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate." This is about being separate from the world. Today, before we take of these emblems, Jesus reminds us we can't be holding grudges in our hearts against somebody else. Forgive as we've been forgiven. He's here to wash away the pride and the selfishness, the unforgiving spirit. And maybe the pain is real. Surely it is. We feel that deep sense of being hurt, that lack, whatever it is from the past. That's what the foot washing is about. Washing away the pride. Washing away that which stands in the way from us being blessed when we come back here. We'll finish this time with by the faith I live by, page 221. Listen to this. A union with Christ by living faith is enduring. Every other union must perish. But this union costs us something. There must be a painful work of detachment as well as a work of attachment. Pride, selfishness, vanity, worldliness, sin in all its forms must be overcome if we would enter into a union with this Christ. The reason why many find the Christian life so deplorably hard, why they are so fickle, so variable, is they try to attach themselves to Christ without detaching themselves from these cherished idols. Here's the battle, church family. This is it. This is not rocket science. This is the whole battle. We're trying to join light and darkness. We're trying to see if we can find a way into heaven, and we can get there and hang on to our pride, hang on to our unforgiving spirit, hang on to our bitterness, to hang on to whatever idol that we cherish. And I'll still be able to make it somehow. That God will understand. He's been through a lot worse than we will ever go through. Just at the trials alone, he has suffered more than any of us have suffered in our whole lifetime. But I love it that he sympathizes and he empathizes with every one of us. His compassion is never failing. It's huge. Much more than we are with each other. If we could only, during the darkest moments, if we could only see with supernatural eyesight, we would see Jesus up against us with his arms around us. We would see him weeping tears of sadness for our pain as we weep. We would see him hold on to us and try to get into a full-blown embrace. And if we could hear with supernatural ears, we would hear him whispering sweet nothings into our ears like we've never experienced. I know your pain. I'm here to set you free. I have never lost a case. Anyone who will submit and surrender their all to me, I don't just put a Band-Aid in and stop the bleeding. I'm going to give you a new heart. And one of these days, I'm going to give you a new body. I'm going to give you the mind of Jesus. So the question for all of us is, do you want that? It's a trade. If you came here angry last night, a friend of mine called and shared he was weeping and crying. And I wasn't angry at God, but I was just angry at what he was going through. had a hard time going to sleep last night. Just like, Lord, reveal yourself to him. Intervene. I had my phone shut off. I woke up this morning, looked at my phone. At that same time, I got a message at 9:58 last night from a brother of mine, Ray Cook. So all he said was, I'm praying for you right now. I thought, man, God, I ain't worried about me, I'm worried about my brother. But that's the way the Lord's love is, family. He just gives. It's the gift that keeps on giving, this. But we can't hang on to the worldly things and hang on to him. You can't tell me that God's not real. Nobody can tell me I've got too much proof just in my life. And not only can he pick us up and heal us, but he can make us so happy that we feel guilty. So as we take time to separate, you're welcome to join us downstairs. Don't stay away because you're embarrassed. Foot washing. I've never heard anybody making a mockery or saying anything negative on anybody's feet. I get it. If you have open wounds and stuff, if you have it on one foot, wash the other foot. We don't care. We're brothers and sisters. That's where the healing from selfishness takes place, so that we're prepared for this. So when we're finished down there, we'll come back here. You'll see the ladies will be on one side, facing the outer wall, and the gentlemen will be on the other. And give nice kind of a privacy and protect our ladies, especially in their dresses. So let's separate, shall we? Let's keep it reverent as best we can. Let's keep this the house of God. This is a house of prayer. We can talk downstairs after the services are over and share, but keep your focus on Jesus. Let's take time to separate now.